Amy Cuddy, welcome first of all to PBS's set, Book View Now, right here at BookExpo America. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Your book is titled Presence, Bringing Your Boldest Selves to Your Biggest Challenges.
Yes.
That is something we all need.
That's right.
Yeah, so many people know you now, 26 million and counting.
Or could be like one mother doing it 26 million times. Who
Could be,
knows?
you're right. Your TED Talk has become very famous, one of the top TED Talks out there. It obviously resonates with a great many people. What do you think it is about body language and nonverbal communication that really connects with people?
You know, it's funny. I think it's not the body language as much as it is that everyone feels like an imposter at some point. So everyone feels like a fraud.
Yeah.
And you know, if I've gotten something like 15,000 emails and letters from people who write and say, "I feel like you were telling my story." And there's actually, Dave Grohl once said, the greatest thing about singing a song to 85,000 people is that they'll sing it back to you 85,000 different ways.
Yeah.
That's how these emails feel. So everybody says, this is how it relates to my life. And the biggest theme is, I felt like a fake. And I knew, it wasn't about not being competent, but I didn't know how to bring that out.
Yeah.
So I really think that it was about feeling personally powerless and not knowing how to find that power and overcome it. The body language piece, I think, it's fun. People like body language, but it's such an easy intervention, right? So Stuart Smalley, remember the whole self-affirmation, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right?
I do that myself.
And the crux of that was that we all sort of know that it doesn't work. He would go into this, I'm in a shame spiral and I'm gonna get canceled.
Exactly.
And the reason is that when you don't feel good about yourself, saying, I'm actually really great, isn't gonna work well, because then you just go, oh, now I'm just lying to myself, right? So the body language piece, the body language in affecting the mind is so powerful because it skips that step. It skips the step where you can go, I don't believe you. If your body's in the victory pose, you're tricking your mind into thinking you've already won. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what appeals. And you know, body language is universal. It doesn't matter what language you speak.
Yeah,
everyone knows these gestures.
Don't know. We have no. So I think the big problem for people is they don't necessarily connect the mind to the way that they are communicating non-verbally to people, the way that what the message they're sending out.
Yeah.
People just don't put those two things together. I know I don't.
Yeah.
Everything is very natural, very organic, so I think, but I'm telling a story in every way when I'm talking to people that I'm not conscious of. Getting conscious about it is the hardest part.
But here's the trick, and it's funny that you explained it that way, because I think that when people think about body language and something like telling a story, they think they need to be choreographing their body language,
right.
And that does not work, because you don't have the cognitive bandwidth to do that. You're already trying to tell a story. So how are you going to manage your facial expression, your smiles, what your lower body is doing, your tone of voice, all of those other things?
Right now as you talk about it.
I make myself more nervous than other people, but that's why you do it before you walk in, right? So it's you give yourself the sense of power before you walk in. And the funny thing that happens is that when we're being real, right, our body language becomes synchronized. Our words become synchronized. So, you know, if you're telling a story about something that made you angry at work today, you should look angry. Your body language should be leaning forward and your lips should be doing this. You shouldn't be looking like that when you're singing a lullaby. But if you're trying to choreograph all of that, it comes across as discombobulated and disingenuous.
Inauthentic.
So, right, inauthentic. And you know, it's funny because when you look at the lie detection literature, the biggest giveaway is not any single nonverbal cue like eye contact. It's, are they synchronized? Do the words match what the body is doing in the face? So when you're feeling authentic, you get this synchrony. And you also get the other manifestation of presence is confidence without arrogance. So people are confident, but open to feedback. You know, so say you go in to pitch an idea. If you love the idea, you should want it to be as good as it can be, right? You're invested in that. You're not invested in being right. You're invested in making it as good as it can be. So real presence sort of comes across as this confidence without arrogance and as synchrony.
It's like one of those things where everybody just wants to feel like they're being real. I mean, you hear, just be real, be authentic. I want my personality to be this person inside here. I just want it to always be radiating out. I'm not sure if it is or not. You just want it to be, though.
That's right.
I don't want to think about it. So when you read your book, how are you helping us to not think about it? You know, like, well, that's my question.
the first part, it's the work you do before you walk in. And so much of it is, well, let me just, quick story. So people come up and say, often, I loved your talk, here's my story, thank you. And the stories are from all over the world, but there's something similar. And this one recently happened at a coffee shop in Boston. So I order my coffee, I didn't really look up, I was actually writing. And the server said, she stood there and I could see her standing there and she said, I loved your TED Talk. I just wanted you to know that it really helped me. She said, I'm Iranian, but I grew up in Texas and I never really felt like I fit in. I went to college and then I moved to Boston, I became a waitress, and then I decided I'm gonna go to med school. And I'm smart and I had good grades, but I had to go in and take the MCAT. And she said, I stood in the bathroom and I stood like Wonder Woman for 2 minutes and I totally nailed it. And what I loved about that story is that I didn't give her any knowledge of stem cells. It's not like I gave her the knowledge to do well in the MCAT. It was there already. So it doesn't make you competent. It allows you to unlock that competence, right? And share it. So that's really what happened. So, when people say that, they say, oh, you helped me do this. I'm like, actually, you did it yourself. It was all there. It was just a matter of letting it out.
Yeah, so you've mentioned a couple times the number of stories you get.
Yeah.
And your TED Talk clearly opened the door to everybody wanting to tell their own. When did you realize that this was something that really resonated in a strong way and that this was a path that you wanted to open up for yourself? And now these new doors are opening up, whether it's the book or other things that have happened, simply because you've found this vein that people really want to explore.
I think I always felt like an imposter. I was always, I've always been interested in marginalized groups and powerless people and giving them a sense of power. I was like organizing letter writing campaigns when I was 8.
Really? Wow,
So,
what an interesting child you were.
I was a weirdo, but most authors are, I think. But
that's awesome.
When I started, the number of emails that I got, and it wasn't just the number, it was the range. So from over 100 countries, equal numbers of women and men. Mm-hmm. Men feel powerless too. Men feel like imposters too. And it was, super successful people. It was older people saying, I want to feel powerful when I go talk to my physician who doesn't treat me like a human. It was 13-year-old girls from mainland China saying, I want to go to university and now I feel like I have. It was the range of people saying, I needed this. I needed to know that somebody else felt this way. Thank you for being human. And please give me more.
Yeah.
It just, I'm not religious, but I have to say it was the closest thing to feeling like I'm being called to do something.
So when you realized that, and you realized that this was going to be all-consuming, this is now a very specific path. Did you just throw everything away and say, "This, I'm going down. This is what I do now"? You're a professor. You have this life.
I am a professor, and so I do have that life. So that it's sort of two full-time jobs right now, but.
Right.
I'm trying to integrate them. I think that working with any kind of student anywhere, they need to hear this message and they need to understand you can't just give them the skills, you have to give them self-efficacy. And it's that combination that I think they don't get. Mm-hmm. So they get the skills and the knowledge, but they don't get they don't learn how to find the power in themselves to share those skills.
What do you see with men and women, the differences? You mentioned that everybody feels this way and it's sort of universal. But is there a difference between the way men sort of express themselves and think about themselves and the way women do?
Well, I think the most surprising finding from the feedback that I get is that men equally feel like imposters, just as many men, as far as I can tell. And the research on imposter syndrome started by looking at women who were high achieving, thinking that it was this weird little select group of women. It ended up being everybody. It was just that men are much less likely to admit it because they're dealing with their own gender stereotypes where they're supposed to come across as assertive and strong and decisive all the time. So, I think it's really heartening to hear men saying, I feel like this too. So I don't think that people are internally having very different experiences. I think what's expected of them is different, and in some ways I think it's more of a burden for men than it is for women. We just finished a study though looking at, we showed kids the wooden doll that's on the cover of my book in high or low power poses, and already by the age of 4, kids think the high power ones are boys and the low power ones are girls. It's the same wooden gender neutral doll. By the age of 6, it's almost universal. So they're learning pretty early on that this is associated with male and this is associated with female. What's funny is that in a hardwired way, I don't think it is, but we learn it pretty quickly. And by the time you see girls in junior high, they start to do things like this. Their body language totally changes. So I think it's internally the same. What you see externally is very different and shaped by culture and stereotypes.
So you know the science as well as anyone, but this is in a way that's practical now.
Yes.
And so that the ways that regular folks like me could apply it to our everyday life, hopefully.
I hope so. I mean, the science is, there's an old part of the science, and like look at yoga. It's not a science, but yoga has had it right. They just didn't have the peer-reviewed publications to support it. And a lot of it is very new, so it's really evolving. And I think, we know something, but we don't know everything about this now. So part of the excitement for me is just learning more and more about what are the physiological mechanisms. It's not just hormones. There's much more going on than that.
Well, Amy Cuddy, so nice to have you here.
Thank you.
The book is much needed, and I'm going to sit more comfortably now.
Okay.
But it's really great to meet you. Thanks for being here. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.